Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Oh, that saved a wretch like me, Lord, a wretch like me. I once was lost, couldn't find my way home, but now I'm found. Lord, I was blind, but thank God that now I see. Without you, Lord, in my life, oh, without you, Lord, I can't make it, I can't make no without you, Lord.
Oh, oops. 1 second, bro. That's okay. You can do it if you like. We'd like to thank our brethren for leading us in our devotional this morning. And Brother Jackson is ready to go. So I'm not going to hold back. I'm stepping away. All the classes may be divided in their various locations. The next voice after mine, Brother R.C. Jackson. Try it now.
Everybody hear me now?
Yep.
It's a little better? Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. I'm not into these technical things, all these computers and stuff, and I'm just not good at them. Everybody can hear me? Okay, good. We are again thankful to God for His goodness and mercy and allowing us to be here one more time, and certainly I'm thankful, and I want to thank everybody that's been praying for me. I know what it's like to get old now. My mother used to say, you wait, if you live, you'll understand. And I certainly understand. I'm glad that I've made over some humps as I get older. And I heard some man say, he said, once you hit a certain age, birthdays start coming earlier. And I said, they sure do. And I said, well, I got another one coming soon, and I'm just thankful to God that I'm still here. Because there is, I don't know how many of you ever think about it. I said, but I have a desire I want to live. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And when I go to the doctor, you know, you always tell me, you say, you get so nervous when you get in there, that's why your blood pressure be so high. And I said, well, I be trying to be cool. But, you know, when they start putting the stuff on you, you get a little nervous. You really do. And so blood pressure's been giving me a tough time over the past few weeks. And it was really tough. And I got to thinking about how everybody, you know, said, well, you got to have faith. You got to have faith. And I said, I understand that. I said, but that don't mean that you still don't have a desire to live. And the doctor gets telling me, said, you got to get that blood pressure down. You don't want to have no stroke. I said, now what do you say that for? You know, because the blood pressure went. And I got to thinking about that. And this is going to be really like I want to hear from you guys. Because I know for me, I don't put things to the side and somebody say, you scared? Uh-huh. I'm going to tell them. If I'm scared, I'm scared. And so I really was this week. And I got to thinking about people saying, well, you got to have faith. And as I was looking at that, I was studying, and I was looking at, well, I don't want to give my sermon away, but I was looking at my lesson, and the person in the lesson was upset. And he and his men, they all broke down and cried until they had no more tears to weep. They just cried themselves out. And I kind of identify with that. I haven't cried myself out, but I've cried enough that I just couldn't handle some of the stuff I was dealing with. And that's where not only should our faith come in, but I wanted to look at something this morning that even when we're going through what we have to go through, and it's got a little pain with it, or if it's got a lot of pain with it, don't sometimes, in this, I'm really looking at myself, it's not that I lose my faith, but I think about, Lord, where you at? I do, I'm going to be honest with that. And I said, Lord, I'm trying to do the right thing. And over the past few weeks, it's been tough for me to get my mind off my problem with my heart and everything else and really study efficiently where I'm good, where I can remember. I couldn't, like I was studying then, I couldn't even remember what I was studying. And this morning, Gail had to stop me this morning because she said, don't, because I was up at 6 o'clock, and I usually don't get up that early. But she said, don't start. She said, you're going to do well. And I said, the thing that bothers me is not that I'm not going to do well. I've been sick. And, you try to do everything the doctors say. And so my sermon, I'm going to tell you what the sermon is. How long will your faith hold out? Because I'm going to tell you, sickness can make you get a little weak. It really can. And so that's what I'm looking at this morning. And I wanted to use the story in John chapter 11. That's when Christ raised Lazarus from the dead. Because we know the definition of faith. Hebrews 11:6. For without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, that he is the reward of them that diligently seek him. Now, faith is more than the definition. You see, people can tell me all day long, you got to have faith, you got to have faith, you got to have faith. But what is it? It's not just believing that God is up there. We all know God is up there, and we've never seen him. But you just don't tell people, I have faith. You got to live it. And living faith to me does not mean that you don't cry when you're upset. Living faith does not mean that you just live by what the definition gives you and we can't see it in you. It does not mean that when I'm fearful, that doesn't mean I've lost my faith. Paul and all of the apostles at one point had to run for their lives. Remember when I think it was Peter, who they let him down in a basket in a window so he could get away? He wasn't running because he had lost his faith. He wanted to live. He wanted to live. Just like any of us would want to live. And so as we go from day to day, if we don't practice what faith really is, we get weak. And when we get weak, some things weaken as far as what we used to do. We don't study as much. We don't pray as much, in which we should, because you're depressed. And so over this past couple of weeks, I've just been saying, I get up in the morning and I feel kind of bad, and I said, Lord, just be with me today. That's a prayer. Be with me, Lord, because I'm going through some stuff. And when I think about that, I thought about this story in John chapter 11 when Lazarus died, Martha's brother. And so how does God get us to get to the point where we know how to wait on God in our toughest moments? How does God make us strong when it comes to faith? How does he do that? What makes somebody on the outside look at you and say, I want to be like her or him? What is it that makes people wonder why you live the way you live? It is understanding, number one, that we have God on our side. We know that. But the thing that I look at is that there is no problem that God can't fix. Amen. Now, I know that. But what I also have to learn to accept is that I was never meant to stay here forever. God will send us through some things that makes us come to him. It's just like our song. The song says, living here below in this old sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford. He helps us to understand, when you ask that question, where could I go but what? To the Lord. And the powerful thing behind that is God not going to fix every problem. It was Paul's thorn in the flesh. He said, I went to the Lord 3 times, and I asked him to remove it because I could be a better Christian. That's what in his mind, he probably could do better to not have to worry about whatever that thorn was. It was pricking him, and he wanted it gone because he was tired of dealing with it. But God didn't remove it. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. Do you know how powerful that is? By the grace of God, willing to become a man, we are blessed far beyond what we deserve. Because he decided to put on this sinful flesh and come down here and live among us and go through the things that we go through, and he didn't have to. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I might be a different person. And my disabilities keep me on my knees to the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can't do it anymore. I used to get on my knees every night. But I can't do that anymore. But my disabilities keep me faithful
Yep.
to the Lord. Because who knows who I'd be if I didn't have my health issue. I wonder about that sometimes. Because I was climbing that corporate ladder.
Yep.
I had 2 college degrees. I had a staff of 31 people.
Wow.
If I was not ill, maybe I would have some thoughts like, oh, I'm doing this on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I know who keeps me.
Mm-hmm.
I know in whom I live. And I believe that my health issues keep me faithful.
They do. I'm going to agree with you 100% on that one. Because when you get really sick, you don't want to see no TV. I don't want to see no TV when I'm laying up there and I can't really move like I want to move, and then if I have to get up to go to the bathroom or in the kitchen, I got to call Gail to help me. That's tough. So God will allow things to happen in our lives that will make us recognize that you can't do it by yourself. I want you to call me because I am your hope and I am your peace. There was some, well, they're gone now, they've been gone for a number of years, that was in this very congregation. And they were sick and knew some had cancer. And I would see that and I said, man, I said, I hope I live long enough to reach the maturity, to have the faith, to say it's going to be all right, and I'm in fourth stage. You know, that's my hope, that if I get to that age where I'm really, really down, I want to be able to say God is still good. So when we see here, I'm sure we know the story, so I'm not going to read it all, but I just want to share some things with you from this story that touches me. When Lazarus died, and they sent word to Jesus that he was gone. Jesus did not say he's dead, he's asleep. That's what he said. And the disciples didn't understand. They said, well, hey, we can get that, we'll wake him up. And then he said, no, Lazarus is dead. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And as Jesus was coming, someone ran out to meet him. And then they went and told Martha that Jesus is on the way. He's almost here. And she leaves to run out to meet Jesus. When she got there, she said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That's how much faith she had in him. That was her declaration. I know if she didn't fully understand everything because God don't have to be there to save us, we know that. But she knew enough to recognize that God can do anything. And he said to her, your brother will live again. And like a faithful person, child of God rather, she said, I know. In the resurrection. I know that. And as I was studying last night, I said, now, when she went out to meet him, she didn't know what he was going to do when he got there, except maybe attend the service. But Jesus said, I am the resurrection. And that gave me a lot of comfort. But that did not erase the desire to want to live. I know you can raise me when the time comes for you, but can you help me right now? I'm not quite ready to leave yet. You understand that. But her faith in what Jesus could do allowed her to say, I know I'll see him again. But he said, I am the resurrection. And the sister said the same thing when she saw him. And so he said, where have you laid it? Now, why did Jesus do that? I believe there's a reason. If you don't think that's the reason, then you can correct me. Why did he ask her that? Anybody? If you've never read that story and picked it up or thought about it, think for a moment. Where have you laid it? Nobody, she took him to the place. I honestly believe that even in our worst moments, God wants us to function. Don't fall up to pieces because you've lost someone or you're in a deep debt that you can't get out of and your house is on the block. Those are moments to be sure enough scared, to be concerned. He said, where have you laid him? She and other people went and took Jesus where he was. Then Jesus said something else. He said, roll the door away. He didn't have to do that. He could have said to the door, move. Or he could have walked through it. But he made them do something. You see, when we're going through something, don't fall to pieces and don't do nothing. That's when the devil can work. Have you ever been going through something and it's tough? And sometimes, like we'll sit down sometimes and we'll get very quiet, be very stoic and just sit there. That's when the devil says, see, he ain't helping you like he said. You pray to him every night. Look at all these troubles you're going through. You ought to stop going to church. I ain't gonna pray to him. I'll fix him. I ain't going to church. And when you get up Sunday morning, you're already tired. You ain't even done nothing yet. You're tired. I don't even feel like going. I've been in those moments where, things are pretty heavy and we're going through some stuff. And how are you going to pay these bills or how are you going to do that or whatever it is. And you get to that point and maybe I'm the only one. Gail and I, we deal with a lot of problems. Sometimes I just get tired. I get tired. And I try to sit down and understand that just because I am a child of God does not mean every day is going to be a banner day. I have to try, I really work on that because, when you figure you're doing everything okay, all right, it's almost like being on a job where your area is good and you got to kick in and people are doing well and then your boss come in and chew you out because you forgot to bring him that note that you had the other day. He said, now all the stuff I do around here, he's going to get on me for that. But Jesus wants us to be able to function in our worst moments. When the children of Israel was about to be released. They were about to be set free. And they was at that moment where they're out in the wilderness and they've left Egypt and they are moving. Those should have been the happiest people on the planet. 430 years in captivity and get to the Red Sea. And one thing happened and they were ready to go back to Egypt. You see, we messed up sometime, and I know I am sometime. And I tell people, that's why I tell people all the time, I say, I'm trying. I'm trying. And some people say, you great. I said, no. I say, I'm all right. Because I know that when the wind blows, it affects me. That's why I keep coming here. Because I know I have a weakness when troubles come. I know that I have some I won't say doubts, but I have some concerns that bother me. And so I have to learn that every one of us who are members of the body, one of the greatest things that I take away from this Bible is that God has promised that there's going to come a time when all of this that you're facing is over. But the question is, will your faith hold out? Job impressed me because he said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. I'm going to wait until my change comes. But then my change may not come until I die. Isn't that something? He didn't say you was going to be good. Well, you got 6 more days. I know there was a few times in my life when I had to deal with some stuff. And I said, Lord, if I knew how long I had to deal with it, I could handle it. Yes. You know what I mean? Yes. You can sit there and say, Lord, I got 6 more weeks. I'll do that. I can handle it. But I don't know. But the Bible says we got to hold out until the end, until you leave this planet. And so that's why I wanted to try and look at faith, because the lesson that I want to do this morning is about a man that I've learned to admire from the standpoint of knowing that I've been blessed to do some things that no one else will ever do. And I look at that, and as he began to deal with his problems, the Bible says that instead of falling away from the Lord, in actuality, he embraced God's love and care and went to him. And so when we fall, instead of letting the problems of life tear us away from God, we ought to move. You know, Brother Cecil was here, and he's gone now. He said, if you're having that many problems, it makes much better sense to me for you to just get your sleeping bag and go down there and sleep in the church. Just stay there. Because when we're here or when I'm studying, I'm into my lesson as best I can, and then after a while I start feeling some joy. And that's where your blessing comes. Because when you can deal with the things, let me say it like this. This I remember this from a long time ago. When you recognize that you have to be wise enough to understand things are going to happen to you, that's when God can do something through you. If we never accept what God has placed in our path, how will we ever get to where he is? When we realize and keep in our minds, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. And my troubles are laid up. And my treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. If ever there was a time that we need to cling to Jesus just a little bit more, it's right now. There's somebody getting killed every day somewhere. And when I look at this, and I look at Martha and how faithful she was, I'm really moved because she did not even make the attempt to say, Lord, can you raise him for me just one more time? I just want to spend a little bit more time with him. She didn't do that. But God gave her that. And her brother lived again, even though he had been dead 4 days. When I think about, when Abraham, God told him you're going to have a son by his wife. He said, huh? That was hard. And I'm sure that he recognized, but he recognized where your information is coming from first before you make a determination. That man started getting ready to have a son by his wife, who was in her 90s. Even she laughed. I laughed with her. But it happened. Faith is the thing, and the reason I say it's not something that we just think, we live it. You got to do something for faith to really be seen. Because the Bible said faith without what? Works is dead. You say you have faith, but you can't get past this one thing. Yeah, you can. Don't let the world change who you are because of trouble. That's the devil's job, and he's good at it. His intent, because he can't get the Lord, he tried, he got kicked out of heaven. But he can get us. It's very easy for the devil to wrap one of us up if we're not careful.
Yeah, I was thinking, I have a relative that gets very upset. She thinks she's a Christian, and I know she's not. Anyway, gets very, very upset about the things of this world that are going on. She'll call me up and, what do you think about the president? When is he going to send those machines, those tanks to Iran?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
When is he going to send them? What is he waiting for? Did you hear about the girl that got killed, the boy that got killed? Did you hear about that? I'm like, yeah, I heard. I said, well, why are you so upset about this stuff? What are you going to do? You going to call the president up and say, President, listen, we waiting for you to send those tanks over Ukraine. Get them over there. I'm waiting. Oh, you want? I said, I can't. She, don't you care? Yes, I care. I pray for him, but I'm not going to have a heart attack over it. There's nothing I can do about it but pray. It's in the Lord's hand what's happening and what they do over there. There's nothing I can do about people that's been murdered and be careful when you go outside, Gail, because you never know. I said, I just want to be right. If something does happen to me, I want to be right. But when I start going in the Christian thing, she don't want to talk about it no more. Oh yeah, I know what you're gonna say. You in the Lord, and yeah, I'm gonna say I'm in the Lord, and you need to be. Yeah, but I know that I have faith. I'm not going to stray from the church because of so many things happening. Things is happening to you, and I praise God for being able to do what I need to do. And everything. I'm not going to be easily of any kind of person that said, well, if this is happening, and this man, as good as he is, and all this is happening, he trying to worship the Lord. What am I doing? What is this about? Where is God in all of this? But I know he's there, and he's sustaining me, and he's sustaining you. And I'm just going to go on with God anyway. Just keep on going. Just stand up and keep on going.
Well, when we think about the world and all that's happening, I really try to keep my mind clear of a lot of things because it breaks my heart to hear all these young people getting killed, some of them not even past 19 or 18 or 17. And I said, their lives are just beginning and it's over for them. But the Bible tells us that if we keep ourselves in the book, if we learn to study God's word the way that we should, God will give us the strength that we need to overcome these things. We will learn how to live with them. But what, as a Christian, can I do other than, now, don't be offended because I ain't picking at nobody. Just coming to church is not enough. So what can we do to strengthen our faith? Anybody? We know that one is to study God's word. We understand that. What are some other things that we can do to strengthen our faith? Yes.
I believe what you can do to strengthen your faith is put the scriptures to the test. Not to say tempt God, but things that He asks us to do outside of our church duties, like helping the poor, fellowshipping, preaching,
Yeah.
asking, setting up functions, take it upon yourself just to call a brother or sister.
You know there's a blessing when you help somebody else that does something to you. The Bible says add. There's some things we got to add to that faith. You got to learn how to be patient. You got there are several. I can't remember them all because I'm getting old. But he said, add to your faith. See, if you have faith and you know how to go get it, you got faith. If you truly believe, you can live it, and people can see it in your life. You know, I guarantee you, there's not a one of us can walk outside and not see someone that represents Jehovah's Witness, Muslim. They really live it, and in the sense that sometimes to me it gets a little. I think it would get a little tough for me because I heard a comedian say, he said I couldn't be no Muslim because they have to wear them hats and those collars and all that. He said, man, don't they have some short sets or something that you can wear in the summertime instead of? He said, because that stuff's too hot. You know, so it helps me to understand that when you do something for somebody else, that's not only a blessing for them, that's a blessing for you. When you pray for somebody else, and you know, there was a time, and I always like to put myself out first, there was a time that I did visit the sick a lot more than I do now. But by letting other things, health, you make an excuse of, well, I can't make it today. And before long, you won't be doing it because the devil's going to keep you out of that. But I say, yes.
Just to add a few more points. One that I personally put yourself second in all things. Some people might not agree, but if you're a Christian and you believe that the Heavenly Father will take care of all your needs, you're going to get yours regardless. You get a job given to you. You don't need a boss. You get an hour pay. You don't need nobody to help you out. You know where yours comes from. So really, you part ways with money, time, and things to help other people that might not be as strong as your faith. It's just a demonstration that it really shows that God is going to take care of you regardless. If you only got 100, you lose 99. The Lord gave it to you anyway. If He gave it to you once, He's going to put it right back. So learning to part ways with things and not really ponder over, because it's not really a loss, but it's earth. So just those two. Learn to put yourself second and learn to part ways.
Well, you know, I agree, but you know, we live in such a changing time. There are, for you young people, there's a lot more out there to have to deal with than when I was growing up. You know, because I couldn't have went to the club anyway because we only had one car, and we lived in the country. So, but there are so many other things that can distract your mind and keep you away from where you need to be in order to get the strength that you need. I actually fear for young people today because some of them are not going to even make it in this life because of what they have to choose from and how easy it is for them to get to where it is. That's why I say to young people in this church, don't get caught up in that club scene. I've never been in it, but I've heard about the stuff that happened when they're there. I have not heard of one party in Newark, New Jersey since I've been here that a fight didn't break out and somebody got shot or cut. We need to understand that if we're going to build our faith, we got to do the things that will build it. And that is understanding that I got to keep my head in this book and I got to do the things that it says so that when time comes, I have something to fall back on. You know, I don't think I would have made it through some of the things that I've had to deal with had I not had some to fall back on. And I had friends who had more, and they kept me from getting to where I'm supposed to be.
Like our young brother was talking about, in this world today that we live in, I'm so glad that I wasn't brought up in this society. Because there's so many things that are so promiscuous now that they can if your child is not brought up to believe that this is wrong, and I'm not going to go along with that, they have so many things going on in schools these days, and this is okay, there ain't no wrong, no problem with that, and you shouldn't say anything against it. You should just say, oh, that's okay, as long as they're not hurting nobody. And they got, it's so much. And they got the cable thing where they got the show about the teen moms, and that's glorified, the teen moms. I'm like, and it's like, it's okay. It's a teen mom, yeah, let's do a TV show, be a reality show about teens having our babies and what we doing. It's like, it's just everything that is wrong is made right in this life. And it's hard for our young people to, if they're not being brought up right and they're being taught right, it's a mess. And I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years. I may not even be here, but I doubt if it gets better before it gets worse.
But when we look at, I didn't want to get too far away from Martha, but when we look at what Martha did, and then Jesus had them do that stuff, take me to the grave, where is it? Roll the door away. When you learn that we are to function under every circumstance, that's when God can do something for you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even Martha, when Martha was talking to Jesus first, and he said, I know your father will give you.
Yeah.
22.
Mm-hmm.
She said, 21 and 22. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it to thee. And Jesus said unto her, my brother shall rise again. So she went into the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
She really didn't understand what
Yeah.
he was saying. She didn't get it. She thought, okay, yeah, well,
Yeah.
the resurrection is going to come back. The Pharisees believed in the resurrection. Sadducees didn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point that I was trying to get to is that it's more in
It is.
it's more about even when you pray, you say, Father, I'm praying that they believe that you sent me. The purpose that I came is that you sent me so I can save this world.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them to understand, but again, the miracle was done so that they can believe and have faith that his Father sent him.
Is the class over? You're right, my sister. I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna close. You're right, and you maybe remember that back then there was a custom that when somebody died, a family member, after he's buried, could go back to the grave and lay on it and pray, and God would bring them up. And so when Martha got up to go to the grave site, and the man said, oh, she's going out to pray. And so I look at that and I say, you know something? The customs were strange back then, but people did not really understand that she heard Jesus was coming. And God was glad that he had that opportunity because that's where he was. And it made them recognize that, you know, let's go, we want to go see something. Because they wanted to understand. And so we as Christians today, we don't pray that God would bring people back, but we do after the person is gone, whatever their state is when they're gone, we can't ask God to do nothing about that because it's done. But when we recognize that a loved one is gone, it's going to break your heart. I know that, but thank God that they were here and you had the time to be with them. That's what I do. I thank Him. And then I say, please watch over the rest of my family and over me and all that. But I am thankful that my family was here for the time that they was here. And that's what we have to do. We can't go to pieces and lose our minds. Thank God for how good He is, because they didn't have to be here as long as they were. So let's try to, this is a very powerful lesson, and at a later date I want to finish that because I want to talk about what you just said and bring that part in about the customs they had back in that time. So I thank you, and y'all don't know, but y'all helped me a lot because I have to deal with my problems just as you deal with yours. And sometimes mine hit me upside the head and knock me out too. Thank you.
Amen. Message to all brothers, please come over to the senior classroom